used to do, where he would start off by saying, "We're now going to do a little demonstration that because you're half my size and you weigh 60 pounds less than I do, is going to make you look very good, but it's going to make me look very bad." And so it starts off with, do me a favor, come over here and just push me over. And of course, this uh, smaller person couldn't do that. And he said, "Well, I'm going to show you how, even though you're half my size, I can't push you over." It was a very small, subtle thing that had to do with turning the heels just a
Hmm.
little bit so that no matter how big the person is who's pushing on you, you ain't going anywhere, you know? So the whole idea between power and force, if somebody is trying to knock you over by pushing you, your first thought is to push back against them. And the actual training to take away from that is no, the power is in your heel. Once you have cocked your heel just this little tiny bit, you are now unmessable. There was that one, and then there was another one that came to mind while we were thinking, while you were talking about, the silk pushing and pulling, and two people working the motion together in Tai Chi. Um, where the demonstration was uh, two people pushing as hard as they could with each other, and then changing it to the model of now let's cooperate. And where I move my hands, you move your hands along with me. And I move my feet, it turned into a dance.
Hmm.
It turned into this marvelous co-creation of two human beings being in each other's space in a very, very powerful way, and creating something that neither one of them could do alone. And the difference between the force of trying to cause somebody to do something through your acting on them, and then power, which is when two objects integrate into one and create this new, uh, kind of a new state for them to be in, that is not only beautiful, but it actually creates something.
The other one that's kind of interesting, and you see this in acupuncture as well, and we would use it mechanically, is when you're trying to work on a movement, let's say, and you're struggling with it. The question John would ask me is, what's overworking or what's underworking?
Right.
And that's what they do in acupuncture. It's like your liver's designed to work in this certain range to be functioning correctly. If it's underworking, that's going to cause some symptoms, but it can also be overworking. So again, now you're back to equilibrium is when you find that range where it's able to function the way it was designed to function. And I think a lot of times that's where, I've just really been paying attention to way people talk and the things they're upset about right now or passionate about or whatever. And generally speaking, it's they're not focusing on what would allow that equilibrium to manifest. It's just, you know, pointing out what's underworking or what's overworking without really thinking about moving towards a range. It's over pushing or under pulling, that kind of thing. So it's just kind of interesting how you just end up with a totally different experience and conversation if you're starting from a place of what creates balance, and that being like someone said the best negotiations are when everyone agrees but no one's really happy. you know it's like, yeah. I always like that because it's true. I mean, if you feel like you won, someone else probably lost, in the process of that. And did you really were you committed to equilibrium or were you just committed to getting what you wanted? So, and what's the price of that that's now going to ripple down the road and create a second or third order consequence. And now you're going to have another overconnect correction and things just keep getting more and more out of balance.
It's what's really cool about our conversation every week is you get to choose your metaphor, and you get to
Yeah.
use the metaphor in any manner that seems to work for you. And I just think it's brilliant that, we went through the Gordon Gecko 1980s with everything being a zero sum game where there have to be winners and there have to be losers, to a man named Stephen Covey, who comes out with the 7 habits of highly effective people. And the goal is now no longer to win or lose. The goal is now to treat every opportunity of synchronicity and uh, win-win. You know, go for win-win or no deal. No deal means no loss of power. And so I completely love the different ways that you can use every metaphor that's been brought in over a lifetime in different circumstances, kind of like the tools in my basement. I got a lot of tools in my basement. I rarely use most of them, but they're there if I need them.
And I was thinking about the physical aspect too, or this equilibrium and homeostasis and all those terms sound like the ideal situation. But like the things I've been listening and watching lately is like the body and the brain need to be pushed once in a while. They need to be activated and they need to be strained almost to another point. Otherwise, there's no growth. So that's physical and mental. So, I mean, I think what we've experienced lately, especially with conversations, is that people are overcompensating for things that they feel. Like Ken was saying, not getting to the middle road. You have to make your point even stronger. And that's why. And we've talked about this, that all we hear are the two extremes and not the middles. So, but the body needs to be stretched. Exercise is what that's for, and learning new things is to stretch. And sometimes it doesn't come voluntarily. You're forced to learn or do something, and then you work back to homeostasis or equilibrium, and that's where the fun part is, the joy in life. Is like, oh, I could do this and I can get back there and I could do that again.
So, Ken, what I really particularly enjoyed while you were talking about negotiating to the point where everybody's equally unhappy is who you were being while you said that. That look right there, the grin. It's almost like there's a personal share there.
Oh, many, I
Yeah.
mean, it's yeah, and and honestly, it's been interesting because one of the things that I learned from it was to determine as quickly as possible where someone is, what result they're looking for in a negotiation. And if, and I actually had a negotiation over a possible business acquisition at one point, and I said, I'm looking for a way here for all of us to benefit from this. And his response was, the only one I'm concerned about benefiting from this is me. And I said, okay, we're done talking. I said, really, honestly, best of luck for you. But that's just, we're coming from a different place. We're really not going to come to any kind of agreement because what you're looking to achieve is very different from what I'm looking to achieve. And he was totally cool with it. And we are like, you know what, you're right. We're wasting each other's time. And onward we went. That was it. And it was a lot less stressful than other negotiations where I'm like trying to get to a resolution
Yeah.
where they're just never thought to ask, well, what does that look like to you? so and it's funny because that's when it becomes fun, because if you've decided that you can both agree that you're going to play this game by you know a set of values and rules that you can both play within, now you can challenge each other, you can push hands, and you're working together really through those challenges and even the missteps to get to a resolution you can agree on, and you do smile, you know and instead of feeling threatened or taken advantage of, or all the other feelings that are going to come up if you're not starting from an agreed upon, pre-agreed upon place.
Yeah. And there's also a lever there, which basically says we've come from a culture that says everyone's got to be equally dissatisfied. Otherwise, we haven't negotiated properly. And what that does is start the clock ticking to when it's over. Whatever was there that was not resolved and put into the partnership category on day one will continue to sit there until it becomes the most dominating thing in the world in the conversation or the relationship. And I say that's one of the main reasons that we have so many people who start things together, whether it's personal relationships or marriage or business partnerships or even working for other people, that they're almost always going in with the idea of, like you said, what I think I know about this situation is all there is to know about it. and that's the confine, and that's where the all of the energy is spent to try to work inside of a space that doesn't fit.
Can I make a book recommendation
Sure.
that kind of goes along with this that I find helpful? It's by a ex FBI guy. His name's Chris Voss, and he wrote a book on negotiation called "Never Split the Difference." And what I found interesting about it was he's not a proponent of win-win or compromise. He said keep pushing until you find the solution that allows everybody to win at a higher level than you thought was possible. And it's a very interesting paradigm that's different from like kind of like the Stephen Covey type stuff that added another element. And I'm sure it doesn't work all the time, but it was just like another tool for the toolbox. And and he developed a lot of this through like hostage negotiation and really, and then he brought it into the business world and a lot of the principles relate over. But that's the name of it, is Never Split the Difference. So interesting book.
Sounds something like something that could be used daily with grandchildren.
Mhm.
So I'm interested, Jan, with regard to the whole idea of integration, with regard to personality, and you know people's spirituality and those sorts of things. Do you have any thoughts in terms of methods or practices that people can engage in that would allow them to be on that particular path?
Um, I think my favorite is just, um, you know, well, I do love yoga because I feel like it, especially because it kind of incorporates both a really nice yoga practice where I'm not talking about, something, I don't know, I think of it much more methodical and much more, I want to say deliberate. It's not, I don't know, it's different. It is meditation and movement. So it's quiet, it's real thoughtfulness. It's spending time with yourself, which I think is key to integration. Um, you know, and always to me I go back to that, and the breath, is really, for me it's really spending time alone and in quiet to connect in. I think that one is if we're coming to a place of where we're going to go into something like a negotiation, or where we don't feel threatened or we don't feel like we have to get on the defensive, then we kind of have to really come from a place of centeredness and a place where I want to say, don't, you know, kind of know where we stand with, not in a combative sort of way. It's just like, okay, this is who I am. For me, that's always valuable. And if I can do that before I go and I engage, before I go into something like, I mean, there's stuff you can't predict,
Yeah.
but even the stuff you can't predict, if you start there, it's always better, you know. You kind of reached a higher, you're in a higher place, not higher like above someone, but a higher part of yourself, or the
Uh,
best part, or the best of yourself when you
yeah.
come into a situation.
And I think that's a perfect goal, to always be better at the end of the sentence than you were at the beginning of the sentence. Whatever the sentence is, a day, a week, a month,
Mhm.
conversation, workout, whatever. I, while you were speaking, the thing that I kind of got left with was, you're familiar with body language making a huge difference in children's lives and adults' lives, and there are people that do TED talks on power poses, and standing in your superhero pose with your arms and knuckles in your sides for 2 full minutes, or in with your arms up and holding that pose, breathing and filling yourself up with all there is to get the goosebumps, all the rest of that. And then what they found with people testing, it was a very strong tool for people to differentiate themselves in an environment where they were applying for a job, for example. And it was a blind test where they went in and they had people who were like a group of 40 individuals all applying for the same job, and they had 5 of those individuals do the PowerPoint